Hello, welcome to The Rational Live. I'm David Dole. Big news. Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the 2020 race. Now, this happened while I was grocery shopping. I hadn't been out in maybe a week and a half. I usually shop on the weekends. Today I figured, you know what? During the week, less traffic, less foot traffic. I'm going to go out and grocery shop. Of course, I go and grocery shop on the one day. The one day I leave the house is exactly when Bernie Sanders is having his live stream and dropping out of the race. So I'm actually going to watch this live stream. If you've watched it already and you're watching this video later, you can fast forward. I don't know how long this is, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But you can keep track of that in the timeline. And then go to my commentary, and I'll be going through tweets and other reactions online. I'll also be going through super chats. But first, I do want to watch this live stream. So if you haven't watched this yet, or if you want to watch it again, you are welcome to. Oh, look at that. That's working. Thank you for your super chat. All right. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to leave those notifications on so people will see the questions, and I'll get to some of those questions, or I'll get to all those questions, super chats afterwards. Let us first go to the stream. So here is the very beginning. I'm just going to sit in a little corner here. Again, I haven't seen this yet, so let's see what he has to say.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining me. I want to express to each of you my deep gratitude for helping to create an unprecedented grassroots political campaign that has had a profound impact in changing our nation. I want to thank the hundreds of thousands of volunteers who knocked on doors, millions of them, in the freezing winters of Iowa and New Hampshire, and in the heat of Nevada and in South Carolina, and in states throughout the country. I want to thank the 2 million Americans who have contributed financially to our campaign and showed the world that we can take on a corrupt campaign finance system and run a major presidential campaign without being dependent upon the wealthy and the powerful. Thank you for your 10 million contributions, averaging $18.50 a donation. I want to thank those who phone banked for our campaign and those of you who sent out millions of texts. And I want to thank the many hundreds of thousands of Americans who attended our rallies, town meetings, and house parties from New York to California. Some of these events had over 25,000 people, some had a few hundred, and some had a dozen, but all were important. And let me thank those who made these many events possible. I also want to thank our surrogates, too many to name. I can't imagine that any candidate has ever been blessed with a stronger and more dedicated group of people who have taken our message to every part of this country. And I want to thank all of those who made the music and the art an integral part of our campaign. I want to thank all of you who spoke to your friends and neighbors, posted on social media, and worked as hard as you could to make this a better country. Together, we have transformed American consciousness as to what kind of nation we can become, and have taken this country a major step forward in the never-ending struggle for economic justice, social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. I also want to thank the many hundreds of people on our campaign staff. You were willing to move from one state to another and do all the work that had to be done. No job was too big or too small for you. You rolled up your sleeves and you did it. You embodied the words that are at the core of our movement, not me, but us. And I thank each and every one of you for what you've done. As many of you will recall, Nelson Mandela, one of the great freedom fighters in modern world history, famously said, and I quote, "It always seems impossible until it is done," end quote. And what he meant by that is that the greatest obstacle to real social change has everything to do with the power of the corporate and political establishment to limit our vision as to what is possible and what we are entitled to as human beings. If we don't believe that we are entitled to health care as a human right, we will never achieve universal health care. If we don't believe that we are entitled to decent wages and working conditions, millions of us will continue to live in poverty. If we don't believe that we are entitled to all of the education we require to fulfill our dreams, many of us will leave school saddled with huge debt or never get the education we need. If we don't believe that we are entitled to live in a world that has a clean environment and is not ravaged by climate change, we will continue to see more drought, floods, rising sea levels, and increasingly uninhabitable planet. If we don't believe that we are entitled to live in a world of justice, democracy, and fairness without racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, or religious bigotry, we will continue to have massive income and wealth inequality, prejudice and hatred, mass incarceration, terrified immigrants, and hundreds of thousands of Americans sleeping out on the streets in the richest country on earth. And focusing on that new vision for America is what our campaign has been about and what, in fact, we have accomplished. Few would deny that over the course of the past 5 years, our movement has won the ideological struggle. In so-called red states and blue states and purple states, a majority of the American people now understand that we must raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour, that we must guarantee health care as a right to all of our people, that we must transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, and that higher education must be available to all, regardless of income. It was not long ago that people considered these ideas radical and fringe. Today, they are mainstream ideas, and many of them are already being implemented in cities and states across the country. That is what we have accomplished together. In terms of healthcare, even before this horrific pandemic we are now experiencing, more and more Americans understood that we must move to a Medicare for all single-payer program. During the primary elections, exit polls showed in state after state, a strong majority of Democratic primary voters supported a single government health insurance program to replace private insurance. That was true even in states where our campaign did not prevail. And let me just say this, in terms of healthcare, this current horrific crisis that we are now in has exposed for all to see how absurd our current employer-based health insurance system is. The current economic downturn we are experiencing has not only led to a massive loss of jobs, but has also resulted in millions of Americans losing their health insurance. While Americans have been told over and over again how wonderful our employer-based private insurance system is, those claims sound very hollow today as a growing number of unemployed workers struggle with how they can afford to go to the doctor or not go bankrupt with a huge hospital bill. We have always believed that healthcare must be considered as a human right, not an employee benefit, and we are right. Please also appreciate that not only are we winning the struggle ideologically, we are also winning it generationally. The future of our country rests with young people, And in state after state, whether we won or whether we lost, the Democratic primaries or caucuses, we received a significant majority of the votes, sometimes an overwhelming majority, from people not only 30 years of age or under, but 50 years of age or younger. In other words, the future of this country is with our ideas. As we are all painfully aware, we now face an unprecedented crisis. Not only are we dealing with a coronavirus pandemic, which is taking the lives of many thousands of our people, we are also dealing with an economic meltdown that has resulted in the loss of millions of jobs. Today, families all across our country face financial hardship unimaginable only a few months ago. And because of the unacceptable levels of income and wealth inequality in our economy, many of our friends and neighbors have little or no savings and are desperately trying to pay their rent or their mortgage or even put food on the table. This reality makes it clear to me that Congress must address this unprecedented crisis in an unprecedented way that protects the health and economic well-being of the working families of our country, not just powerful special interests. As a member of the Democratic leadership in the United States Senate, and as a senator from the state of Vermont, this is something that I intend to intensely be involved in over the next number of months, and that will require an enormous amount of work. Which takes me to the state of our presidential campaign. I wish I could give you better news, but I think you know the truth. And that is that we are now some 300 delegates behind Vice President Biden, and the path toward victory is virtually impossible. So while we are winning the ideological battle, and while we are winning the support of so many young people and working people throughout the country, I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful. And so today, I am announcing the suspension of my campaign. Please know that I do not make this decision lightly. In fact, it has been a very difficult and painful decision. Over the past few weeks, Jane and I, in consultation with top staff and many of our prominent supporters, have made an honest assessment of the prospects for victory. If I believed we had a feasible path to the nomination, I would certainly continue the campaign. But it's just not there. I know that there may be some in our movement who disagree with this decision, who would like us to fight on to the last ballot cast at the Democratic Convention. I understand that position. But as I see the crisis gripping the nation, exacerbated by a president unwilling or unable to provide any kind of credible leadership, and the work that needs to be done to protect people in this most desperate hour, I cannot, in good conscience, continue to mount a campaign that cannot win and which would interfere with the important work required of all of us in this difficult hour. But let me say this very emphatically. As you all know, we have never been just a campaign. We are a grassroots, multiracial, multi-generational movement which has always believed that real change never comes from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up. We have taken on Wall Street, the insurance companies, the drug companies, the fossil fuel industry, the military-industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, and the greed of the entire corporate elite. That struggle continues. While this campaign is coming to an end, our movement is not. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that, quote, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice," end quote. The fight for justice is what our campaign has been about. The fight for justice is what our movement remains about. Today, I congratulate Joe Biden, a very decent man, who I will work with to move our progressive ideas forward. On a practical note, let me also say this. I will stay on the ballot in all remaining states and continue to gather delegates. While Vice President Biden will be the nominee, we must continue working to assemble as many delegates as possible at the Democratic Convention, where we will be able to exert significant influence over the party platform and other functions. Then together, standing united, we will go forward to defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history. And we will fight to elect strong progressives at every level of government, from Congress to the school board. As I hope all of you know, this race has never been about me. I ran for the presidency because I believed that as a president, I could accelerate and institutionalize the progressive changes that we are all building together. And if we keep organizing and fighting, I have no doubt but that is exactly what will happen. While the path may be slower now, we will change this nation, and with like-minded friends around the globe, change the entire world. On a very personal note, speaking for Jane, myself, and our entire family, we will always carry in our hearts the memory of the extraordinary people we have met across this country. We often hear about the beauty of America, and this country is incredibly beautiful. But to me, the beauty I will remember most is in the faces of the people we have met from one corner of this nation to the other. The compassion, love, and decency I have seen in them makes me so hopeful for our future. It also makes me more determined than ever to work to create a nation that reflects those values and lifts up all of our people. Please stay in this fight with me. Let us go forward together. The struggle continues. Thank you all very much.
All right. Let me get back here. So that was pretty clear. Let me just mention a little bit here of why Bernie said he dropped out. So again, I'm just going to summarize a bit of what Bernie said, give you my reaction, the path that Biden has or doesn't to win the election in November. I'll also show you Joe Biden's response. I believe he sent out like a 800-word response, so I'll read a part of that. And also reactions from, of course, Super Chat. I'll read all the Super Chats and Twitter as well. All right. So, Bernie Sanders announcing that he is suspending his presidential campaign, noting that he didn't see a reasonable path forward. Also mentioning the ongoing pandemic and the impact of that right now on the race means, Bernie can't hold rallies. He can't really get out the vote, can't go door to door. This is a campaign based on energy, based on volunteers. If you can't really truly engage in that during your campaign, then I get it. There is no real path forward. Again, Bernie would have to dominate every upcoming state, and that's just not going to happen without the ability to actually go door to door, have these events, that kind of thing. Put your message, get your message out there. If that's not going on, what path do you have? And because this pandemic really is, a big focus right now, it makes it tougher to discuss the entirety of what your campaign is about when the focus is really about the pandemic and how to address that now. He also mentioned how the campaign is ending, but the movement isn't. So this was also true in 2016. In 2016, a lot came out of Bernie's campaign, be it Justice Democrats, candidates, and now politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and many other groups, and really more of a focus now from people in general on the issues. And Bernie was able to engage a lot of new people into the voting process, people that hadn't been engaged in politics for a while or ever, because they just viewed Washington as just this totally corrupt place, which it is, but his campaign was outside of that in terms of how they raised money. No reliance on on corporate donors, on big donors, no private events even, just small individual donations averaging about $18 a piece. That's what his campaign was about the people, about the movement. So that movement does continue because these ideas continue. Because the campaign was about policy, about ideas, that's why the movement continues. For any other campaign, you can't say that. You can't say that about Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren or anybody else that flip-flopped on issues, were never really fighting for the issues that they pretended to fight for at the time. Bernie Sanders, his supporters, they support him because he's been a fighter for 40 years fighting for the same thing. So that energy, that movement definitely continues. Also, he said that he is staying on the ballot. This is an important point. So when it comes to being able to influence the party platform, influence the Biden campaign in general, being able to stay on the ballot and collect delegates and still have that delegate base going into the convention will help him in terms of putting pressure on the Biden campaign when it comes to fighting for certain issues. But what really needs to be focused on, and I know Bernie's not going to get into this during this live stream, but what matters is the personnel. Who is around Joe Biden? It's easy for Joe Biden to say, okay, I'm going to support, even though he's not going to, but it would be easy for him to say he supports Medicare for all now. He should support Medicare for all. It's freaking obvious. But even if he says that, how can anybody trust Joe Biden to actually fight for anything when he's been all over the place on issues? I mean, look at his history. This is why he's a horrible candidate, Biden is, for a number of reasons. But on his record alone, like voting for the Iraq War and then saying, oh, it was a mistake. The bankruptcy bill, him being a part of that and then saying later, oh, it was a mistake. The crime bill. He's the orchestrator of the crime bill and then saying later, oh, it was a mistake. Like, how many times, the trade deals, voting for the trade deals and then later saying, oh, it was a mistake. How often has Biden done this? So you can say you support something, but are you actually going to fight for it? And based on Biden's record, he's always been on the wrong side of history. So unless there are people around him, including the his vice president, that are going to actually fight for these issues, then the party platform means nothing. It doesn't mean anything at all. What actually matters is who is around you, who is influencing policy, who is in your cabinet. Is your cabinet going to be full of Wall Street executives again? Wall Street, fossil fuel executives, big pharma? Is that who you're going to be listening to? Because, of course, that's the whole point of Joe Biden's campaign, is that he is incredibly establishment. That's what he is, the status quo candidate. So he's not going to try and fundamentally change anything unless he thinks he really needs Bernie's supporters, which he does, and not even just Bernie's supporters. This is the main difference between Bernie supporters and Joe Biden supporters, and I mentioned this in my video yesterday on Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Biden voters during the primary by and large, aren't voting for him because of policy. And I'm putting aside the millionaires on television that don't want to see their taxes raised. I'm putting aside the fossil fuel executives, the big pharma executives, putting aside those people. The average person that votes for Joe Biden voted for him because they like him as a person. They like what they see. They like what they know of Joe Biden. They like the fact that he was Obama's VP and he's been there before. That's as far as their interest goes. They also like the fact that they're told by mainstream press that Biden is the most electable. These are the things they like about Joe Biden. It's never about policy. For Bernie supporters, the reason they support Bernie Sanders is because of policy, because of his 40-year fight, because of his track record, his character, who he is as a person, what he has always fought for. So the easiest way to try and attempt to get some of those supporters from Sanders and bring them into your campaign is to focus on the policy issues, adapt or adopt the policy fight that Bernie Sanders was fighting for, because you're not going to turn off Biden voters that already support you except for the millionaires. But that's the problem, because those are the people right now that control Biden's campaign. So if Biden was completely uncorrupted, was just working on strategy and thinking, okay, how can I win voters over in order to win this election in November? How can I win young people over? Well, the smart thing to do, again, pretending like big money isn't a problem in Biden's campaign. The smart thing to do would be to take on a lot of Bernie staff, bring in people that worked with Bernie Sanders on policy issues, fight for those issues, pick a vice president like Anina Turner or Rashida Tlaib, someone that endorsed Bernie Sanders, that has been a dedicated supporter of Bernie Sanders for a while now. Bring that person into a prominent position on your campaign as vice president and show the people that you're actually fighting for them. That would be the smart, strategic thing to do, because you're not going to turn off Biden voters, because again, Biden voters are voting for you because you were Barack Obama's VP and because cable news told them that you're the most electable. So you're not going to turn off Biden voters by bringing in Sanders staff. The only people you are going to turn off are the millionaires that support your campaign. And the billionaires, the fossil fuel executives, Wall Street, of course, Big Pharma. These are the people that you will piss off by bringing in Bernie staff. But it's what you would need to win. And therein lies the issue with Joe Biden's campaign. What he needs to do is antithetical to the people that are around him, to what they've been fighting for. Just the complete opposite of what they want. So Biden isn't working on just strategy and understanding how to win. He's barely even coherent. He's not controlling his campaign. It's the people around him. And because Biden already, his history is by and large going with the big donor interests, then he's just going to go along with what his campaign people want him to do, what his big donors want him to do. So, and that's completely reject Bernie Sanders. Rhetorically say nice things. Say, oh, praise Bernie for being, a leader, for fighting for these issues, for creating this movement. Very nice things to say. But if there's no substance there, then what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's completely empty. It's exactly the same thing Hillary Clinton did in 2016. Empty words that mean nothing. So Biden's going to go with someone like Kamala Harris as vice president. I'm almost positive it's going to be Kamala Harris. Maybe, I don't know, Stacey Abrams. It could be somebody even more boring than that. Someone that nobody knows. And it could be like a Tim Kaine-like figure as his vice president, when he really needs somebody that endorsed Sanders, that has been a fighter for these issues. So all Biden has to ride on in terms of him winning, if he's not going to try and get those Sanders supporters, and again, not even just Sanders supporters, but the majority, the 40% of Americans that don't normally vote, the people that have been disillusioned by the system, the people that realize politics is all corrupt. If you can't win those people over, then all Biden is relying on right now is the anti-Trump vote. Are there enough anti-Trump voters that didn't come out in 2016 that are going to come out in 2020 and vote for Joe Biden? That's what he has to rely on right now if he's not going to go after that 40% of the country. And I don't know. We know when it comes to enthusiasm, there's a massive enthusiasm gap between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Right now, Joe Biden's enthusiasm is 8 points lower than Hillary Clinton's lowest point in 2016. Enthusiasm often predicts elections. So if already Joe Biden has an 8 point lower enthusiasm, or his enthusiasm is 8 points lower than Hillary Clinton was in 2016 at her lowest point, how do you come back from that? The only way you come back from that is by actually embracing where the energy was in the party. And that's with the young people. That's with these progressive voters, these more left-wing voters. That's with issues like Medicare for all, like free public college, like a Green New Deal. That's how you bring people in and create energy in your campaign. But because the people running Biden's campaign don't want those issues, don't want those policies, then Biden's not going to do that. He's going to pretend that he cares about Bernie Sanders and his supporters and ultimately promise nothing. And even if he promises something, it will be a lie unless there are people on his campaign that have been dedicated to the fight for those policy goals. So that's Bernie and Joe. In terms of Bernie himself, he will be vindicated by the entire. It's already obvious for people paying attention, but for those not paying attention, understand if you supported Bernie in this campaign, you are on the correct side of history. History will show everybody that Bernie was on the correct side of all of these issues and that Americans were fucking stupid to not vote for him. History has proven Bernie right all along. He's been a leader fighting for all of these issues before they were popular, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's Medicare for all, whatever it is, fighting for the poor and the middle class, fighting for higher wages. History has shown ending the wars, being against the Iraq war and all those other wars, whatever the hell it is, Bernie has been proven right. He's been on the correct side of history on all of these issues. And again, we will see the same thing in 10, 20 years. People will look back and people that didn't realize it now will realize it in 10, 20 years that, oh yeah, Bernie in fact was right. All those people that we smeared as Bernie bros, they were actually on the correct side of history. And again, they weren't Bernie bros. He had the most diverse support base out of anybody in the race. And the Democratic Party completely stomped the energy out because their moneyed interests were with Joe Biden and the status quo. But I'm going to need some more days to process this whole thing. Because even though, kind of saw it coming at this point, we knew there was a very slim to zero chance of Bernie being able to win the nomination. It's still just, this is fresh. It's a fresh wound. So we're going to need to sort of all process this over the next few days. Let me see if I can find Joe Biden's response. And then, yes, I will get to your super chats. I've seen many of them. Here we go. 800 words. Okay. Let me read through this quickly as possible. Though if I do that, I'm sure I will stutter all over the place. So quickly and carefully, I will read Joe Biden's statement. This is his 800-word statement on Bernie Sanders. Today, Senator Sanders announced he was suspending his campaign. Bernie has put his heart and soul into not only running for president, but for the causes and issues he has been dedicated to his whole life. So I know how hard a decision this was for him to make, and how hard it is for the millions of his supporters, especially younger voters, who have been inspired and energized and brought into politics by the progressive agenda he has championed. Bernie has done something rare in politics. He hasn't just run a political campaign, he's created a movement. And make no mistake about it, I believe it's a movement that is as powerful today as it was yesterday. That's a good thing for our nation and our future. Senator Sanders and his supporters have changed the dialogue in America. Issues which had been given little attention or little hope of ever passing are now at the center of the political debate. Income inequality, universal health care, climate change, free college, relieving students from the crushing debt of student loans. These are just a few of the issues Bernie and his supporters have given life to. And while Bernie and I may not agree on how we might get there, we agree on the ultimate goal for these issues and many more. Total bullshit. Total bullshit. Total bullshit. You agree on the goals? Since when? When did you agree to cancel all student debt? When did you agree on free public college for everybody? When did you agree on a Green New Deal to actually deal with climate change seriously? When did you agree on universal health care? Lies. But more than any one issue or set of issues, I want to commend Bernie for being a powerful voice for a fair and more just America. It's voices like Bernie's that refuse to allow us to accept what is, that refuse to accept we can't change what's wrong in our nation, that refuse to accept the health and well-being of our fellow citizens and our planet isn't our responsibility too. Bernie gets a lot of credit for his passionate advocacy for the issues he cares about, but he doesn't get enough credit for being a voice that forces us all to take a hard look in the mirror and ask if we've done enough. While the Sanders campaign has been suspended, its impact on the election and on elections to come is far from over. We will address the existential crisis of climate change. We will confront income inequality in our nation. We will make sure healthcare is affordable and accessible to every American. We will make education at our public colleges and universities free. We will ease the burden of student debt. And most important of all, we will defeat Donald Trump. We will make sure healthcare is affordable and accessible. The most, these people, they're so fucking fake and they think nobody sees through it. How about Medicare for all? How about free at the point of use healthcare? How about that? How about some actual specifics on what you mean? Of course, no specifics because you're full of fucking shit. This means nothing. You can say people have this now. Everyone has access to healthcare eventually. That doesn't mean you can afford it. That doesn't mean it's near you. All of this is just total bullshit. Where was I? You ease the burden of student debt. Again, ease the burden. After he was talking about how crushing student debt is, now we're just gonna ease the burden. Not gonna get rid of it, even though it's crushing student debt, but we will ease the burden. Total bullshit. And most important of all, we will defeat Donald Trump. Yeah, good luck with that. At this moment, we are in the middle of an unprecedented crisis in American history. There is enormous fear and pain and loss being felt all across the country. There are also untold stories of heroism of nurses and healthcare workers and doctors and first responders and grocery store workers and truck drivers and so many others on the front lines of this crisis, putting their own lives in danger for the rest of us. If we didn't know it before, we know it now. This is the backbone of our nation. Our first job is to get through the immediate crisis threatening the public health and getting help into the pockets of America's workers. But we also need to take a hard look at what we need to fix and change in this country. Many of the biggest cracks in the social safety net have been laid bare, from healthcare to paid sick leave to a more extensive and comprehensive system of unemployment benefits. We will need to address these, just as we need to address rebuilding our nation's infrastructure. And we all know the clock is ticking, and we don't have a moment to waste in combating the climate crisis. As friends, Jill and I want to say to Bernie and Jane, we know how hard this is. You have put the interest of the nation and the need to defeat Donald Trump above all else, and for that, Jill and I are grateful. But we also want you to know I'll be reaching out to you. You will be heard by me, as you say, not me, us. Yeah, we will. We will see. We will see about that. And to your supporters, I make the same commitment. I see you, I hear you, and I understand the urgency of what it is we have to get done in this country. I hope you will join us. You are more than welcome. You're needed. I hope you will join us. You are more than welcome. You're needed. How about making some actual commitments? How about trying to fight for them? This isn't about just opening your door. You need to put some snacks out to get people in. So if you're not going to do anything for anybody, no one's going to join your campaign. Together we will defeat Donald Trump, and when we do that, we'll not only do the hard work of rebuilding this nation, we'll transform it. All right. 800 words of bullshit. There you go. From Joe Biden. Actually, let me get super chats first, since you've all been patiently waiting. And then I'll show you some tweets and do a little scroll through Twitter to see how people are reacting to all this. All right, let me start from the bottom, or the beginning. David Soul says, Bernie screwed up big time. How messed up if it turns out he ends up winning Wisconsin by 30 points or more? Why Bernie what? Not likely. They know. They have exit polling as well. I imagine they have exit polling, don't they? Are there any exit polls? But still, unlikely for that to happen. And even if that did happen, there's still the other states to win. It just didn't. Look, he's still on the ballot. So I think this is the important point to make. It's not that like he's completely out. He's still on the ballot, but he's not going to be campaigning to win. And during a pandemic like this, unless your state has vote by mail, and who knows where this all ends up in June when a lot of these states have pushed their dates back, it's possible it's likely it'll still be unsafe for people to go out in big crowds. So I don't think it made much sense for him to stand at that point, but I do think it makes sense for him to stay on the ballot, and I like that he did. Oh, it is just me, says, love your content, Mr. Doyle. Sad day for me. Thank you for your super chat. Yes, a sad day for all of us. Luther Rich Sarah says the DNC used the virus, voters' lives against Bernie. Yeah. Brick Nose says, do you think the DNC will switch from Biden to Cuomo or someone now that Bernie is out, especially when the sexual harassment allegations to the media? There's speculation about that, but again, Bernie's still on the ballot. So if you just switch out Biden when Bernie's still on the ballot and then has the most delegates after Joe Biden, there would be an uproar if they moved from Biden to somebody else. Though Biden supporters, I'm sure, wouldn't care because, again, like they're just voting for Biden largely because they're told he's electable. So if they if Biden drops out and backs Cuomo, all Biden supporters will go to Cuomo because they don't really care about any of this. All they care about is defeating Donald Trump. They will support anybody to defeat Donald Trump. But you are definitely turning off a lot of Sanders voters and a lot of people that want to see real changes if you just swap out Biden for someone like Andrew Cuomo. That would be a dumb move on their part. Dumb, but also maybe smart because Biden does have so many issues. The sexual harassment or sexual assault, actually, allegation, huge. I mean, this is a huge issue that hasn't even been explored yet, hasn't even been touched by the mainstream press. God, Biden is such a bad candidate for so many reasons. His mental acuity or lack thereof, sexual assault, his platform, his record, the big donors behind him. Biden's the worst candidate. Who would have thought? I mean, a lot of people would have thought, but who would have thought it was possible to get a worse candidate than Hillary Clinton in 2016? Well, you got one now. Joe Biden, I think, is clearly worse than Hillary Clinton. Constance Brown says the lesser of two sexual predators. The lesser of two sexual predators it is. Yeah, that appears to be what a lot of people are having to vote for now. DBL007 Will says the Democratic Party is dead to me. Appreciate the big donation. Thank you. Rachel Atwood says not telling swing state voters they should follow me in this, but I'm checking out Hawkins for my own Massachusetts POTUS vote. What else is there? Checking out Hawkins. Sammy Mahmood says Superman is dead. Darkseid is the fall. Is the fall of the Second Roman Empire begins. The periods in the wrong place screw me up. Superman is dead. Darkseid. That's Darkseid, right? Darkseid. The fall of the Second Roman Empire begins. Thafe says, so the younger generations get to watch the world die. I only feel hate for the older generations that screwed the world up before I was even born. That's a little... Look, I think we're going to get through this pandemic. The reality is real change takes a friggin' long time. It takes a movement of people. It doesn't take an individual, though it would definitely help to fast track a lot of the issues for sure. It still takes a movement, and you still have to be engaged. You still have to fight. The world is not over. The world exists right now. And in some ways, the pollution's getting cleaned up, at least, at the very least. And hopefully at the end of this, there will be some lessons learned in terms of how healthcare should be guaranteed to people. At the very least, people that maybe didn't support, like the average voter that maybe didn't think Medicare for all was a good idea before, I think are going to be a little more open to it now. And other issues as well, like a universal basic income. People will be more open to that during this process. So this is a real way to sort of like this pandemic right now is fast tracking many of these ideas. So while Bernie is not going to become president, a lot of these ideas that he has fought for are going to become more popularized, more so now because of what is going on in the world and people waking up to the realities of what is needed for humanity to survive. Che says, quote, good guys don't always win. The desire for liberty may be ingrained in every human being, but so is the potential for complacency, confusion, and cowardice, and losing has a price. That is a quote. Thank you, Che. Isang says, did Bernie really mean to win, or did he do it to bring light to his policies? No, of course he meant to win. Mr. Catfish Jr. says, the heave hand of the DNC just committed. I think there's a lot of typos in this one. I don't know what you're saying. But thank you for your super chat. Prog Rocker says, very telling, the Trumpies are celebrating. I haven't seen that, but the reality is they would also be celebrating if Biden dropped out. Like, it's not, they're going to celebrate regardless of who it is. Mr. Catfish Jr. says, this is the day the American dream dead. Koru says, I feel so sorry for the U.S. Bernie was the only one who could have rebuilt the country. Bad Luck James says, thank you for your work. I routinely looked at your channel for the best updates. Today is a hard day, but I love you all. Still not a Democrat. VA says, thank you. Thank you. Let me get some more of these. Actually, let me put a pause on that there to show you some reactions on Twitter, just to mix it up. I'll get back to these. I will get back to the super chats though. So here we got Fashakir, Bernie's campaign manager, tweeting out, it was the honor of a lifetime to work for Bernie Sanders, someone whose empathy, compassion, and determination to address human suffering is inspiring and unparalleled. He awakened a nation to the fact that we all must be demanding much more to have the just world we deserve. He goes on here. We didn't win what we came for, but we won the battle for our future. Our campaign revealed a generational split. The future rests with Bernie's vision, ideas, and platform, and those of us who believe in it still have much work to do, and it will get done. I tried to run the campaign with the integrity that marks Bernie. It wasn't perfect, but we should be proud of it. The staff throughout all levels were talented, mission-driven people who often came to this from deep lived experiences. It was a privilege every day to lead them. Our volunteers, donors, and supporters made this campaign historic. We rode on your strong shoulders, and you took us on one hell of an amazing journey. Thank you. We'll all look back with great pride to have been part of this together. Hashtag not me, yes. So, nice parting words there. There were definitely issues with the campaign. They could have fought harder. Sanders could have been a lot more confrontational during the debate process, shown that he could have done similar to what Donald Trump did in 2016 with the Republicans and basically called them out one by one. And Bernie did that at moments and points with Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden and their donors. That was a amazing moment. But he also should have made the clear distinction between Elizabeth Warren and himself. And he didn't do that. So they could have also reached out more to people that maybe have more of a mainstream following, though that's a lot tougher because, again, a lot of these people that are sort of your status quo politicians or media figures are that way because of who funds them, because of where their money comes from. So it's, you could say Clyburn as an example. People were going after Bernie because he didn't go after Clyburn's endorsement. You're not going to get that guy. Like, you're not going to get someone who's a lifelong status quo politician. You're not going to win him over. So, sure, I don't know, give him a call. But the reality is you're not going to win these people over when they are ingrained in the current system and how it operates. So, I don't know. They could have also, they should have ensured that they were keeping their working class base. The white working class base. Because they had, the reason why the Hillary and Bernie race was so close in 2016 is because Bernie was winning rural areas. This time, Biden was winning a lot of those rural areas that Bernie had won in 2016. So while Bernie had a more diverse base this time around, and that's awesome, he should, in the process, whether it's through, it's hard to know why he lost a lot of those people, those rural voters that he had in 2016. It could simply be because a lot of those people were a little more conservative in terms of their views on politics, but because of that, they hated Hillary Clinton. So a lot of that vote that Bernie had in the rural areas potentially simply was anti-Hillary voters voting for Bernie Sanders. And because you had Biden in this time, that was no longer an issue. So Bernie was now splitting that vote with mainly Joe Biden. And at the beginning, Pete Buttigieg in a weird way. But mainly Joe Biden. So they lost that base. And I'm not sure if they really could have done anything to be able to keep that base simply because Hillary was the reason they had a lot of those voters in 2016. But In terms of media, I just think they could have been a lot more outspoken. Like Fashakir, when you're on cable news, or anybody else in the Bernie campaign, when they were on, they should have been a lot more outspoken, a lot more angry. Otherwise, you blend into the background and you don't really stand out as a campaign. So they were getting attacked anyways. If you're being attacked by the press anyways, you might as well give them a reason to attack you. You might as well be angry. Get serious about it. Like, fight for these issues as hard as you can. And don't be afraid to make enemies, because they hate you anyways. So, who cares? I'm sure there's a lot more. At some point, I'll sit down and really drill down what Bernie could have done better. But that's just off the top of my head. Let me show you who else had a reaction here. I really enjoyed this quote. So Michael Brooks tweeted this out. This is from Lula da Silva. Quote, "Those in power can kill 1, 2, or 3 roses, but they will never be able to stop the coming of spring." That's great. So they can get rid of the Bernie campaign, but look at where the people are. Look at where people are on these issues now. Even in states that Bernie lost in big numbers, Medicare for All was still more popular, still won a majority of support from Democratic voters. Even in states that Bernie lost to Biden in big numbers, Medicare for All still won in exit polls. It shows you where the people are on the issues. And it also proves my point that Biden voters didn't vote for Joe Biden because of policy, unless you work in unless you're an executive in the fossil fuel industry or in Wall Street or in big pharma. But the average Joe Biden voter didn't vote for him based on policy. They voted for him because cable news told them that Biden is electable. And because Biden was a familiar person, he was Obama's VP, he had been there before. For them, that was enough. So to win those Bernie voters over, you got to go with policy. But again, even on the policy issues, Biden voters support Medicare for All. Like, knowing that really tells you everything. Let me get back to super chats. I may browse Twitter at the end of the stream, but let me see what the super chats are saying. Prog Rocker says Biden, Obama want to preserve their Affordable Care Act legacy. That's such a dumb. It's like, you're probably right. I'm not saying you're dumb, but I'm saying if they think that, that's pretty dumb. Because when Obama was fighting for the Affordable Care Act, I mean, he discussed how this was a step towards universal coverage. It was never meant to be the end. Like, oh, now we got the Affordable Care Act, now that's it. No, it was meant to be a step towards universal coverage. Medicare for All is universal coverage. So if they try and make that argument, which many people are, and that's potentially the reason that Obama, anyways, has been, pulling some of these strings behind the scenes, then that's pretty disgusting. But at the same time, it would make total sense. These sorts of politicians, all they do is prioritize their career, their best interests, how people view them above everything else. Melissa Martinez says, we can still vote for Bernie. Yes, you can. But again, vote by mail unless this goes away in 3 months, which I don't think it will, but we will see. Car Wash Freak says, I won't vote for Biden. Progressive movement goes on. Sean Walker says Biden is milquetoast. RN says, do you have an opinion on Destiny talking a lot of BS about Kyle Kalinski's dead dad? I don't F with Destiny. He's a pseudo-intellectual contrarian. I didn't hear about any of this. I've heard Destiny has been talking shit about Kyle. It's pretty dumb. It's stupid. I don't know why the hell. Look, I don't want to get into that drama because, again, I haven't followed it. But a few months ago, when I had seen some videos about that, I don't know. I can't pretend to understand why certain people do what they do. But based on the substance of what Destiny has been saying about Kyle, it's complete bullshit. And if he's doing what you're saying he's doing now, that's really disgusting. Holland Shaw, thank you for the super chat. Text us progressives, says Nina Turner 2024, a man can dream. I'm with you. Nina should totally run in 2024. So should Rashida Tlaib. I don't know. There are a number of people. Rokana, maybe. Stephen Alvera says, I can't deal with the news, so I wanted to say thank you for your post on Bi Visibility Day a while ago. It started a chain of events that led me to coming out as a bi man to friends and family. Thanks. No problem, Stephen. Fugati MCR says, I've been watching The Sopranos. Fugati MCR says, the left in the U.S. has to ditch the Democratic Party. There is no forming the party. It's always going to be this way. Bernie should run third party. If he was going to run third party, he should have done that from the start. He's not going to do it now. So whether you want him to or not, he's not going to do it. And ultimately, I don't know. That's something I have to think about a little more, because there are pros and cons to that. But I'm not completely opposed to the argument, I should say. But the reality is he's not going to. So the argument is futile. Isang says, Jill says to swallow. What? Okay. Prague Rocker says, what happens to cottage industry around Sanders? Cottage industry? Which cottage industry? Sean Walker says, Biden is milquetoast. We are done. Maja says, I cried this morning. You could feel his pain and sadness. I really think that thanks to Bernie, it's not a matter of if Medicare for all will happen, but when. I do agree with you there. I do think Medicare for all is still going to happen. It just may be a little longer of a wait than it would have been otherwise. Linda Liz says, let's push Biden to pick Tulsi for VP. I don't think Tulsi has any real ideology. So I don't think it would make much of a difference. I think she would just go along with the Biden platform. Adam V says, initially my goal was to defeat Donald Trump. Now my goal is to defeat the establishment at any cost. I will never vote for an establishment candidate again. It's time to play the long game. Dem party is done. I appreciate you, David. Thank you, Adam. Melissa Martinez says, please encourage people to still vote for Bernie. Yes, people still vote for Bernie, but don't go out and vote. Vote by mail. Nobody go out and vote. It's not safe. Mary Cage. Thank you for your message, Mary. It says 20 euros, but I think you put that in there by mistake. Let me refresh this page. And maybe let me do a little quick Twitter browse. Okay, I just saw this. Donald Trump's reaction. Bernie Sanders is out. Thank you to Elizabeth Warren. If not for her, Bernie would have won almost every state on Super Tuesday. This ended just like the Democrats and the DNC wanted. Same as the crooked Hillary fiasco. The Bernie people should come to the Republican Party. Trade. God. Okay. This is what they're going to do now. And you got to hand it to them. I guess it's kind of smart, but you shouldn't be dumb enough to fall for this. While this is true, yes, the idea that they would now join the Republican Party when it is the complete opposite of what Bernie has been fighting for, no. And trade is, since Trump's rhetoric on trade is one thing, his actions are another. He's not been fighting for working people's interests in trade deals. That's not what Trump has been doing at all. So it's all just a bunch of bullshit. But strategy-wise, this is smart for him to do. But I'm going to hope Bernie supporters aren't dumb enough to fall for this crap. This is the argument they're going to start using again. The lesser of two evils. Here you go. It worked last time. I don't know how much it's going to work this time. But that's a discussion we will have to. You'll have to see if This is on Joe Biden. Like, understand, this is on, if Joe Biden wants to win, it's on him. If he loses, it's his fault. It's on Joe Biden to try and attract voters over. If they're going to just go with this, if that's going to be their line, he's going to lose. I back this. Bernie's policies with Trump's zero fucks energy. That would be the perfect candidate. That's why I like Rashida Tlaib or Nina Turner. They just tell it to you straight. They don't care. That'd be great. All right. Back to the super rich hats. Probably get out of here by 2, maybe a little before 2 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, where was I here? Here we go. Nyack says, this is a sad day for the whole world. Solidarity from India. Stay mad, David. Your energy and anger helps me remain hopeful and keep resisting. Thank you. Mr. Catfish Jr. says, sorry for the bad spelling. No worries. I just didn't know what you were saying. Sean Walker, thank you for your super chat. Demand universal health care. Thank you for your super chat. Rachel Atwood says, I phoned for Bernie twice. People hated Hillary Clinton. Not surprising. Bricknose said, the centrist resisted the progressive side, and now there is no champion for it. Bernie's supporters proved they don't turn out. No silver lining. No, there's silver linings. The silver linings are in their exit polling, showing people supporting the issues that Bernie has been fighting for. The problem is, there was the big anti-Trump vote was coming out during the primary. So there were a lot of people that didn't vote. So there were a lot of new voters coming out during the primaries, but not even just Bernie voters. So there were a lot of new Bernie voters coming out, but there were also a lot of new voters in general coming out during the primary, and a lot of those people voting for other candidates. And largely because of what they were told by the mainstream press. So, look, mainstream press still has a massive hold on people's opinions. If I can find, I was going to do a separate video on this, which I likely still will. But let me just show you the media consumption of Gen X and Boomers, because it tells you exactly what I'm talking about. So this is data used from, where is it? Global Web Index. Okay, so this is the Global Web Index data. Might be kind of hard to see here, but here is the Gen X brain. Online video is 35%. Broadcast TV, 45%. So this is media consumption during COVID-19, but this tells you a bigger picture as well. So Gen X largely listening to broadcast TV. There you go. Boomer, it's all broadcast. Online videos, 11%. 11% for online videos. And the rest, it's mostly broadcast TV or none of these. So no media at all, or online TV streaming. So, watching CNN through YouTube or some other way. So broadcast television, that is the impact that it has on people's brains. So when you have people that are the most reliable voters over 45, coming out during the primary in bigger numbers than in 2016, a lot of those people are voting based on what they're told from cable news. So they're voting for the wrong candidates. And many of those people, I forget what state it was, but there's states where 30% of Biden voters thought Joe Biden supported Medicare for all. Like, we're talking about the media doing a horrible job. And I'm not blaming voters here. It isn't their fault. They have busy lives. It's the media's job to inform people. The media has been purposely misinforming people to hold up and continue the status quo, because they financially benefit from the status quo. Look at how many friggin' big pharma ads are on during commercials on CNN and MSNBC. I mean, they benefit from the status quo financially. So they misinform people, say Biden is the most electable, even though he's the same freaking candidate, and in fact worse than Hillary Clinton was in 2016. But no, Biden's the most electable candidate. Total bullshit. Doesn't matter. That's the impact it has. Where was I in these super chats? I lost my space. Here we go. Larry Levine says, moving my support from the Sanders campaign to the one clear voice in media. Thanks for your hard work, David. Me? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Larry. Very kind of you. Rachel Atwood says, U.S. citizen in Ukraine. I'm terrified of Biden for UA. Jaguar Rose says, I'm most annoyed by Never Trump Republicans who hijacked our party to help Biden drag us back to the right. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Yeah. That was one of the big fears. Like, in 2016, some people thought, hey, if Donald Trump wins, then that means Democratic voters are going to really want Bernie Sanders next time. No. What ended up happening is that a lot of voters saw Donald Trump and then all of a sudden were completely happy with just baseline acceptance of what they had before. That's it. So Donald Trump definitely pulled a lot of voters to the right. So this is an issue. Huge issue with trying to bring people back. Because if people think they're only worthy of an Obama-like presidency, or now with Joe Biden presidency, then they're not going to try and fight for something better. And when they see Donald Trump as a Republican, like, I'll put it this way. If it wasn't Donald Trump as president and it was Marco Rubio, you would not have seen Joe Biden run for president this time. And in fact, Bernie Sanders possibly would have run, and I think definitely if he ran, would have won. So the issue is Donald Trump in terms of what people are now view as acceptable. So you have this crazy lunatic, and not just in terms of, I'm not just talking about in terms of policy, but in terms of rhetoric and his impact on culture. Trump's impact on culture, incredibly negative, divisive, destructive, and people see that and they want some return to normalcy. And they see, okay, well we can't have Barack Obama. Joe Biden for them is the next best thing because he was Obama's VP. That's a return to normalcy, almost literally, for them. So that's what people were, that's what happened. People's views changed. Salmon Savior says, keep America great. The Democrats will never learn. Can't wait to see every neoliberal shocked at how Biden could have possibly lost. Yeah. And guess who they're going to blame again? This is what they always do. The media and status quo establishment, they love conservative voters. They love conservative voters. They love what they think are moderates. They think these people are between two parties. No, they're just completely disengaged from the system. But they love the idea of moderates. They love conservative voters. Oh, how do we win the conservative voters over? How do we get those moderates over? But when it comes to progressive voters, oh, fuck those people. They want a better world. They want everyone to have health care. Really? You want everybody to have health care? No, fuck you. Fuck you. Go away. If we lose, it's your fault. Like, think of how insane that is. You marginalize, you sideline the group of people that are actually fighting for a better world. And then you blame them when you lose. It's too fucking crazy. It's too fucking crazy. Don Snow says, we need a movement of people engaging in local politics. Me and others in my community are going to push it, and everyone in this chat. Let it invigorate you. Not the time to give up. I'm with you. Local politics is huge. Yes. If you think you can't have an impact, look into local races and then begin to recruit other people with similar views as yours in those local races. And you begin to get a name for yourself. You can rise up and go into and expand into maybe state politics, national politics. You are able to do that, but you have to begin growing and actually working locally, get people to know who you are, make them recognize that you've been fighting for them, that you will fight for them. And then you will have powerful figures, political figures later on. But it does take that investment into local communities, local politics to be able to make that happen. Trudy says sore loser laws forbid Bernie from third-party run. I don't know about this, but that is interesting. Tex US Progressives, or Tex Us Progressives, says, oh, the shade towards Snake. Pop Reality says Biden needs to lose for progressives to win. I don't think it's that direct. But if you're talking about 2024, then yes, that actually is literally true. Jonathan Nelson says, how can we dismantle the corporate media by 2024? You're not going to. But you can invest and help, as you are right now, independent media. That's the only way to do it. But because of the nature of our politics on the left, we're never going to have a billion-dollar media company. That's just not going to happen because of because of our belief in politics. But what you can do is, as we're seeing right now, the shift from younger generations are towards online media, online video. So while that shift happens, yes, it's a slow, boring process, but that shift eventually happens to the point where online media takes over broadcast television. So really, you kind of got to wait it out, but at the same time, you have to invest in independent media for us to be able to flourish. Otherwise, we're stuck, and we can't grow. But it's not going to, corporate media is not going away in 4 years. That's not going to happen. John Boyle says, what do you think of Howie Hughes? I'm hearing his politics are similar to Bernie's. Can you do some videos about him? I will look into it. Prog Rocker says, David, you are a part of the Bernie cottage industry. Part of the Bernie cottage industry. I am an independent news producer, is what I am. I existed before Bernie. I existed after Bernie, and I will continue to exist. We are independent media. Revel says, just giving love because I love your content. Keep up the good work. Trina says, Americans don't care how many people die because they can't afford health care, or for the person working multiple low-wage jobs to pay rent. It doesn't matter because of the word socialism. Mr. Catfish Jr., are we watching the death of the DNC? We are slowly watching the death of the DNC. Yes. Phil's Pargo says Bernie and the movement will continue and grow. Is that a new member? Welcome, Teodora Padilla. Yes, the movement will grow and continue. Buddy Naher says, we are grieving now, but the fight goes on. Thanks for being there, David. Bernie continues to giving his life for this country. Yes. The great president of hell says Trump isn't seriously trying to get Bernie supporters to join the Republicans. He's trying to make us feel so sick of the DNC that we stay away from the polls entirely. Well, I agree with you there, but the last line said, come join the Republicans. He is trying somewhat to bring people over. But no, he's trying to be divisive and, pouring salt in a wound and hitting some truths. That doesn't mean he deserves anyone's support. Santa Clausewitz, thank you for your super chat. Do you guys want to see more Twitter? See what's happening on Twitter, or just finish these super chats and get out of here? Was it 158? All right, I'm not going to be here much longer, but I will finish the super chats. Just want to give a quick. Okay. Maybe I'll do more of a Twitter reaction thing later, because I was seeing a lot of interesting reactions. I also want to see what cable news' reaction is. Get to that. I'm sure they're all going to be. Let me actually show you. Let me show you, if I'm not blocked yet. Alyssa Milano. Here's how Alyssa Milano replied to Bernie dropping out. This is the person that has been talking shit the entire time. A few days ago, she was tweeting out all these articles, all these anti-Bernie articles again and again, like 13 in a row, attacking Bernie Sanders. Now all of a sudden, Bernie Sanders, you forever changed the party and made us reflect upon all the ways we need to do more and be better. Your efforts will be reflected in every advocate and activist for generations to come and will inspire policy that will make the world a better place. Thank you. Holy shit. As I said below here, you're the fakest fucking person on the internet. The fakest fucking person on the internet right here. Alyssa Milano. Back to Super Chats. All right. Let me make sure, if you want to send a Super Chat in, get it in now, because I am going to go. Also, thank you for all your generosity. I know it's, for a lot of people right now, it's a tough time. So don't worry if you can't afford to support me. Don't worry about it. But let me finish these off. Where was I? Prog Rocker says, the problem was mostly the old people, the cable TV effect. I engaged hundreds of voters. I'm a prof researcher, I can assure you. Yes, cable TV effect definitely is a massive issue. Santa Clausewitz says Trump at least wakes people up. As a member of the working class and a minority, I have noticed no change at all with Trump versus Obama. David says Bernie was the compromise. It's now clear there's no way to compromise with the neoliberals. Yes. The next candidate that represents this view has to be angry, forceful, out there, no holds barred, all the way. Like a Nina Turner-like figure, a Rashida Tlaib saying, impeach the motherfucker. That kind of personality is what the left needs right now, moving forward. Hysteria Crater says, I think I read that wrong. Hysteric Ader, whatever your name is. The planet species doesn't that much. The planet slash species doesn't that much time for slow change. Also, Bernie was the last hope for peaceful change. We're getting Joker next. Going to my earlier point. Yes. Swirly Swirl says Bernie was the lid to the pressure pot. Yeah. Many good analogies coming in here. These are great. Yes, I agree with all these. All right. Last super chat. Is that a new member? I thought I heard a new member. Swirly Swirl again. Now all our spare money can go to down ballot progressives and independent media. Great point. Down ballot progressives. This is another reason you still should vote. There's still primary races happening down ballot, and also when it comes to the general, you have to vote down ballot for Democrats. You do not want Republicans in control of Congress. Again, that isn't saying Democrats are perfect, but that's saying, especially when it comes to cultural issues, you know what I'm talking about. Issues like abortion, issues like same-sex marriage. These issues matter. And down ballot, and also just in terms of rhetoric and not being a racist, in terms of that, it matters down ballot. So make sure you vote for the right people down ballot, even if you hate the top of the ticket. Okay. We about done here? We about done? Having a good time? I appreciate everybody coming in today. Let me just finish off what is left here. DVDV says, I'm super devastated. Bernie, go third party, please. We will see. Did something else just come in? Joanne Cavallo says, I'm a boomer, Bernie supporter, love you, and only watch independent media. Thank you, Joanne. The problem is there isn't enough of you. It's unfortunate, but it's the way people. It's not even really the fault of boomers. It's just it's the way they're raised. You're raised on television media. That's what you trust. You think, why would somebody be on television if they didn't know anything? Why would they be on television if they're lying? And that's all it is, all the time. They're on television because they're paid to be on television, and they're paid by the money that wants to see certain political views stay the way they are. So that's how television actually operates. When it comes to the internet, we get to go down to the real, or get to give you the real information, objective facts, and our analysis. And we're also very open with who we support. Cable news acts like they're neutral by not telling you who they support. That's not neutral. That's just lying to people. Tell people who you support so we know where you stand when it comes to your position on certain issues. But that's the old model. The new model, this model, the online model, makes a lot more sense and is a lot more honest. Santa Clausewitz says, I'd prefer Vladimir Lenin. All right. Almost out of here. Doll Crazy 300 says older Southern blacks vote out of despair. They don't believe whites would support a candidate who wants to help them. Thought Sanders' policies were fantasy. America has damaged many black minds. I can't speak to that. I assume you're speaking based on your own experience. But I don't know. Leslie G, thank you for your super chat. All right. So, all in all, a little disappointing, obviously. Thank you, Kyle, for being a member. I think I got some other members I should have shouted out if I didn't see. Okay, I can't see all the new members that I got here. But I appreciate super chats. I appreciate the new members. It keeps me going, especially YouTube has definitely deplatformed a lot of our content during this COVID crisis. Even if now we can monetize it finally, we still aren't coming up in searches. The only way to find our channels really is through word of mouth. So apart from just subscribing and giving to the channel, also share it. Share these videos around. Friends and family, like get people tuned in to a different perspective. One they may not be used to hearing because it is free from corporate interest. Another super chat. All right, these are coming in late. Just telling you, I'm going to be getting off soon. So if I lose you, if I don't get to your super chat in time, I'm sorry. They're going to blame Bernie anyway. Go third party. They will blame him anyway, yes. But that's a discussion that will be ongoing in terms of people and how they feel about voting in the general, and also how the election will even happen and what's going to happen if this pandemic is still going on. A lot of stuff that we still don't know. But thank you all for coming. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Last refresh. Okay, there we go. Thank you all. Friday, still the usual live stream at 3 p.m. Eastern, so come for that. Thanks for coming, and stay strong. Stay strong, stay safe, and stay in the fight for a better future. Later.